Hello, in this episode we will be talking about costs and numbers. All about the chateau, the cost emotionally and physically and financially, everything to do with buying a chateau, moving here and the toll it's taken on us. Anything you can think of, or rather anything we can think of, we'll try and answer. I'm sure we'll miss things out, but this is the video anyway. Enjoy. We're just going out for a nice lunch out, which is something we don't get to do very often. And partly it's because it's so hot at the moment, 35 degrees or something like that today, that it's really hard to get motivated to do actual work. So we're going to have a nice lunch instead. And it's a special treat for me because Jane's driving. It's normally my job. So we thought this week's video might be a little bit different, and we're just going to talk about the last year and what from our perspective it's really like to live in a chateau, buy a chateau, and how it's changed us perhaps. We don't know exactly what our answers are going to be, so just follow along and we'll see what happens. So we're just driving past a place, and I don't know if the camera can see past Jane up the hill. And that was the first chateau we saw in this area, and we went to visit it because the chateau we bought had been offered to somebody else, and so we'd missed out. And so we went to see that one, and we were gutted because we didn't like it very much. And we happened to ask the estate agent about the other one, and he said, as luck would have it, it's just come back on the market. And so we were so happy. That really made our day, made the trip, because we thought we'd missed out on the one that we really wanted. So it all started up that hill. I actually can't remember our first night in the chateau when we first arrived and we finally went to bed. I can't remember the first night. Can you?
I think we were exhausted, absolutely exhausted, because we'd been to the notair's office. Yeah. The horses had just arrived. It'd been a complete whirlwind. We'd had Chateau DIY filming this all day. Okay. I think we were utterly shattered.
Has this first show gone quickly for you or slowly?
I think it's gone quickly.
Yeah. It's odd. It's a strange combination of, for me anyway, it's that it's gone really quickly. How has it been a year already? And yet so much has happened that I sometimes think, how have we managed to fit all of that into a year?
I think time just speeds up when you're busy, in general as you get older, but when you're busy and you're conscious of a limited amount of time available, which we are, because we've only got so much budget to play with, so we can't just dilly-dally. So everything we do, we have to be conscious of how long it's taking us. So we're always feeling like we have to get things done, and that speeds things up in your mind, at least, if not in actuality.
We may have missed the turning, and now Google is taking us down a very narrow track. Do you ever wonder how on earth we actually got round to making the decision to move to France and buy a chateau?
I think it just became an obsession. I think it just became something that, although it was going to be difficult to achieve, it had an inevitability about it, because I think our hearts were captivated by the idea. So it was a case of, when could we go? When could we afford it? When could we find the right property? And then it was just a matter of all those things coming together.
Even now we've done it, sometimes I think, how did we get to that conclusion that it would be a good idea? And you're right, it must have been, we wore ourselves down. We wore down our better judgment to keep the status quo.
I mean, there's definitely a quantity of fantasy about it, and you need that. You need some romance, some dream-like aspect to something to carry you over all the practical pain and pitfalls involved in something. And there was definitely that. There was both of those things, and then it was a case of waiting until everything fell into place.
We were heading to Bassus for lunch. A new restaurant had just opened and we'd heard great things. Bassus is a beautifully preserved medieval village. It's known for its 14th century donjon, timber-framed arcades and cobbled streets. Jane had been once before with Karina, but this was my first time and I was enchanted. Right in the centre is the Église Sainte-Marie, a fairly unassuming church with a grand interior. Inside, it's an explosion of colour. Walls, ceiling, every arch and alcove covered in magnificent paintwork like a fresco fever dream. Naturally, I did what any deeply moved visitor would do in a place of such reverence and grandeur. I stood perfectly still and made my signature echo pop noise with my mouth. Glorious.
So this is my own carafe of wine that's included in the menu. It's quite pale, that's good. I like a pale one. Quite a small glass as well, so I can have many small glasses. It's lovely, actually.
Is this our main course?
No, this is our starter.
What am I eating?
You're having Toulouse sausages and I'm having fish.
Oh, yes. Right, so this is our second course, but it's just the starter. I think we're in for a big lunch.
What would you tell yourself a year ago?
Straight away I'd say you need to put more effort into learning French and get better really quickly. It's a slow process. Perhaps I'm just not the best at learning languages, but I'm getting there. But it's been a long, hard journey to get where I am, and I'm still a long way off. I'd also probably say, Rory, you've got a general propensity for being optimistic about how long work will take. Just sort of accept that jobs are going to take a bit longer than you imagine they will, because they all do. And that might be for various reasons. New problems being discovered, underestimating how long a job would take, even in the perfect circumstances. And also the heat. Once it gets too hot, it's really hard. It's really hard to work. And just enjoy it. We have, I think, but yeah, it's the new life. It's not just rush to get this job done. This is what we're doing. This is our forever thing. So enjoy it. How about you, Jane? What would you tell yourself a year ago?
I would tell myself, don't worry, the first year will be fine. Because I worry about everything, and sometimes you need to worry about things, but most of the things I did worry about haven't come true, haven't come to pass, so I could have avoided quite a lot of worry.
That's probably good advice for the future as well, perhaps.
I'll try not to worry too much.
So what would you say we've argued about the most?
It's hard to say. I know that we argued early on about
How much time to spend doing the videos.
Oh, yes.
And we've gradually settled into a rhythm, but there has been quite a lot of work, especially for you, doing the videos, and you've had to cajole me along the way a little bit, telling me what I need to do to join in.
I still do things.
Yes, you still do that. Sometimes we argue about little things where we're not really having a proper difference of views exactly. But I think because we're in a relatively high pressure environment, the two of us, sometimes it becomes a heated debate when neither of us is actually either that cross or has a very different opinion from the other one. I think I may have used an impolite gesture on one occasion. Do you think we've changed as people in the last year?
I think a little bit, because when we arrived, I'd been working solidly as a plumber for many years, and I was just in that frame of mind. I was wake up early, get to work, be on the job site by 8 o'clock. I think I said to you last year, I wonder if I'll ever be able to sleep in again, because even here I was just waking up early. The last few months I have found that my lie-in time has crept up to 7 o'clock, and if I'm allowed it creeps past 7 and 7:30. So, you know, I've changed in that I think my body's relaxed a little. I'm relaxing into this new life. I'm not so uptight about going to work and getting the work done. And so from that perspective, yes. But in general, I think I'm just the idiot I was when we arrived. Digging a bit deeper, Jane, what's been your darkest moment since we came here?
Well, I don't know about a moment precisely, although there was a time when I thought somebody was trying to break into the chateau in the middle of the night. And I tried phoning Rory and he was away, and I ended up phoning our friend Karina. And anyway, it turned out it was the agricultural irrigators that were making a huge noise outside in the adjacent field. So that was a bad moment, followed by a huge amount of relief. And then in general, I worried a lot about whether our visas would be renewed. Would be granted the first time. And then I'm now worrying about whether they'll be renewed, because we put everything into this. So it's quite a big risk that we've taken. So that's always a worry.
Have you changed as a person since you've been here?
I think I appreciate people more now, because I think this life is a lot more about relationships, and we have to depend not only on each other more, but on other friends, people that we meet and become friendly with here. And it just makes me realise that actually those relationships are the most important thing in our lives. I mean, my career is no longer a thing, so, and perhaps it's the most important thing in most people's lives, but I think I've only just realised. So what's been your darkest moment, Rory?
Well, that's easy. Losing Mrs. Miggins.
The pussycat. Yeah. So do you think there's been any culture shock? Have you felt homesick since we've been here?
Oh, I've not felt homesick at all. Culture shock, yes. But it's not the same as, say, if we'd moved to China. The culture isn't completely different. But yeah, the sort of general customs, the long lunch breaks that the French have. I mean, this part of France certainly is a lot more laid back than what we're used to, I suppose. And the shops close at lunchtime, and yes, from that point of view, there's a little bit of culture shock. But it's just one way of telling you to wind down a little bit, just relax a bit more. How about you?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think
We can see this shop.
culture is not so different, and I grew up in Belgium, and I remember the hot summers and the patisseries and the smell of food and sitting out in cafes, and all of that's wonderful. I was more attached to particularly my garden, but the house that we moved from in Suffolk. So I think I found that difficult. But the good thing about the southwest, it's not arid.
Yeah.
It's not a different landscape really. It's actually a very familiar landscape. We've got lots of arable fields. It's not super dry. It's lush really, and
Yeah.
so I think that made a big difference for me.
Yeah. No, I agree.
The next day we were on the road again, this time heading almost as far south as you can go without shouting, Madre mia, España!
If we walk far enough, our spaniels will be Españols.
I will.
Jane, remind me again why it is we bought a chateau in the south of France.
We like suffering.
We're like suffering on beautiful mountain walks.
Yes.
I won't say we're not lucky because we bloody well are. Today is the 21st of June, it's the summer solstice, and here in the Gers it is the hottest day of the year so far. Ooh, something just biting me. Might have been. And so we've come into the mountains because it's about 10 degrees cooler down here, so it's only in the high 20s. So it's still pretty roasting. We're trying to stay out of the sun. So we're in the woods on a path above the lake, and it is just staggeringly beautiful here. So because we're up in the mountains, what better place than to talk about chateau costs? I suppose that's a question that lots of people would like to know the answer to, and maybe some of you have it. We certainly didn't know what the answers would be when we first moved in a year ago. Not entirely anyway, but we've got a better idea of it. Well, Jane has a better idea of it now. So what was the actual buying price of the chateau?
So the asking price of the chateau was 550,000 euros, which at the time was about £470,000. We ended up paying the full asking price because we were told that there were other bids in at the full asking price, which one assumes is true. So there was no room for negotiation. But we figured that the property had quite a lot of useful things inside, as we found. There are some lovely things. Some of the furniture's reusable, much of it is not, but you know, there were some things. So we figured it was a fair price, including the contents. But there's something like an 8% additional charge you have to factor in. So it's a combination of taxes and the cost of the notaire. It's mostly taxes, local and national taxes. So you have to allow at least 7%, more like 8% on top of what you pay, which goes to various other authorities. So in fact, the price that we actually had to part with is about £500,000.
And was the asking price, did that include the estate agent fee?
No, so we don't pay the estate agent.
Oh, that's when you...
The buyer doesn't pay the estate agent.
Oh, okay.
But you pay the notaire fee and you pay the taxes.
Okay.
It's about 8%. If you think of it in the UK, on a property that size, you'd be looking at 3% stamp duty plus your legal costs. So you'd probably be looking at about 4%, but here we have to pay 8%, so it's quite high.
Oh, and the electricity is a bit cheaper here, isn't it?
It is
Slightly.
a little bit. It's a bit, I think it's maybe about 30% cheaper or something like that. But it's about the only thing apart from wine and cigarettes, but we don't smoke, which is cheaper in France. Nearly everything's more expensive. Fruit and veg, so your normal grocery bill, it's about 30% more in France than in the UK, which makes a big difference. It means you have to be careful not to waste food. Food is precious, and a lot of French people grow their own food. It's why potagers are so popular in France.
And which is what we've started trying to do this year.
Yes. So I couldn't bring myself to buy strawberries in the shops last year. They were just so expensive. So this year we've grown our own strawberries, and obviously we're growing a multitude of tomatoes, which is very exciting.
And what are the running costs? Water's quite precious as well, isn't it?
Water is definitely more expensive here than in the UK. UK is pretty well off for water. France, especially down here, water is expensive. So it's a bit more than €4 a cubic metre. A bit more than €4 for 1,000 litres of water.
But once you've bought your chateau and you've moved in and you've paid out all of that money, that's not where the costs end. They keep going, which you know a lot more about than I do.
Yes, so there are property taxes, as there are the world over, and they vary dramatically depending on which commune, so effectively which village or small town or big town even, you happen to live in. Normally, the estate agent will tell you what your taxe foncière is before you buy the property, and it's very good to ask because, as I say, it can vary dramatically. The taxe foncière we're paying is expensive. It's last year it was €4,300 for the year, and any improvements you make to the property, for example, adding a swimming pool, it will go up accordingly. If we were to convert other buildings to accommodation, or we're not going to build an extension to the chateau, but that sort of thing, all of those things will raise your property taxes and you have to declare them. So yeah, it's definitely dampened our ardour in terms of making any moves to expand, apart from the pool, which is a must.
Well, we kept one of our cars. The other vehicle we had was a van, which would have cost a small fortune, almost what it was worth just to import it in import duties. And so we didn't do that. I took it back to the UK and sold it. And car insurance here is very high, and most people, it would seem, aren't fully comprehensive with their car insurance. That generally speaking, everybody's third party because the cost is so high. And by extension, there's a bit of a cliche suggesting that all the French cars have bumps and dents in them, and the older ones, there is quite a lot of truth in that. So second-hand vehicles are very expensive to buy. A van that was 10 years older, a French van that was 10 years older, effectively the same van, but with the steering wheel on the other side, would have been worth almost €10,000 more than my van that was 10 years younger than it. And so certain things you just have to put up with because that's how it is. But you also might want to insure your chateau.
Yes, chateau insurance. Well, I received some eye-watering quotes. It's quite hard to find anyone who will insure it for a start, because the local companies that we asked, it was just too big for them. And I mean, ours is a very small chateau by chateau standards, but the local companies, it seems, they have to cover their own losses, and they just, it was too big for them. And then I got an eye-watering quote from a specialist insurer who supposedly would cover chateau, and it was astronomical.
Bonjour. Bonjour. Bonjour.
So we finally got an acceptable quote through our bank, and I think to some extent it's because they see us as good customers of the bank. So I would recommend, and our car insurance is now through the bank as well. So I think that's a good tip. Try your bank.
All too soon our mountain excursion was over. We returned home where it was still 36 degrees Celsius.
36 degrees, which is body temperature, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's really hot today. So we're sitting in our unheated hot tub, and it's 29 degrees in here.
29 degrees Celsius.
Yep, which is
Delightful.
Delightful. One of the things I've been really pleased by being here is how lovely the people have been, the local people. As we have met some expats, and we do spend a lot of time actually talking English to people who speak English, I suppose. But beyond that, everyone we've met, almost without exception, has been extremely nice, very welcoming, very interested in what we're doing, very encouraging, and very kind. I don't know whether it's the whole of France or if it's the southwest. We have been told that people in the southwest are very special. I think also perhaps being in a rural area where people help each other out because they have to. But people have been extremely nice. Officialdom can seem quite scary, especially at first, but there is a human face to that officialdom, which is generally very nice and understanding and really wanting us to succeed.
We're still waiting to find out about the renewal of our long-term visas, and we had to go in for a meeting to give over all of our documents. That we had a dossier each, a huge stack of papers that they require, and we took them in, and the lady there was lovely, and she recognised us. Which is so silly, because our little YouTube channel only has a few thousand subscribers, but she recognised us from Chateau DIY that had been translated into French and renamed Chateau XXL, and so she'd seen us on that.
Yeah, so pretty much the first thing she said when we arrived is, "You haven't been renovating a chateau, have you?" And for a moment I actually thought, oh gosh, was that a bad thing? Should we not have done that? And then she said, "Oh, I've seen you on TV. I've just been watching you. And she said, oh, I adore it. I adore that program. And she said, all the talented Brits who come over here to renovate these old properties. And she was such an enthusiast. So,
Oh, I don't know if I mentioned, I passed my French. So I now have French A1, which means I'm allowed to stay. Should they let me stay for other reasons, I've got my basic French.
well done, Rory.
Thank you. I feel like it's quite an achievement. Would you do it again? If you suddenly found yourself back in England and this had been but a dream?
I don't have any regrets. I think we made a good decision. We chose a really lovely property in a very beautiful location.
It's time to end it there before one of us stands up and this video turns X-rated. Thank you for watching the video. Please like and subscribe if you feel like doing so, and we will see you next time when we hopefully will have some exciting updates.